Okay. Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Hi. All right. So this is Unit 3 and Team 3 this week. Who would like to share first?
I'll go first. So I read the 2017 NMC Technology Outlook for Chinese Higher Education. I read with the subtitle Important Developments in Education Technology for the 1 year or less adoption, specifically maker spaces. So my middle school campus is partner with Citgo, the oil company, and they have a STEM academy within our school. And we just got a maker space last year. So the maker space is basically a space with a lot of technology, educational tools like 3D printers and robotics activities. And it's just a space for students to create and experiment with different tools that they don't get to use within the classroom. And I think that's great because my fiance is an engineer, and we're just looking through, Instagram, this people making stuff out of with solder and all these things. And he was like, "Oh, I did that when I was little." And I was like, "Where?" And he was like, "No, I just did it at home." And I feel like the skills that he took from just playing with things in his dad's garage really contributed to his love for science and eventually his career in engineering. So I feel like having the maker spaces and making it available to students will really enhance their skills and let them experience all that, because they can't, some of them don't have, family that does stuff with them like that. And sometimes not, the parents don't know how to structure activities that will engage them in engineering and science and all that stuff. The one thing I have that it's troubling me with maker spaces is that it has to be, for us, I feel obligated for it to be tied to my content. Because if I'm doing this with them and it's awesome, it's great, they're learning, but it's not tied to my content, and I'm falling behind on my pacing guide and I feel bad. So that would be my one thing that, makes me not want to go there.
I think that's great that your campus has that for the students, because there's a lot of students out there that can benefit from it. Like you said, they may not have the family and the friends that are able to help them with it.
Yeah.
So being able to environment at school, I think that's amazing. I wish all schools had that.
So I've seen more of a crafty maker space. So yours is more technology maker space.
Yes.
That's pretty cool. And then you were talking about how our families don't have structured playtime or things like that. And I was just thinking how most of our families live in apartments. They don't even have a garage. They don't have those things that like your fiance had growing up. And then when you were saying soldering, I do remember, again, child of the 80s. So where they gave us wood burning kits, like was a gift. And I was just like, okay, let's burn some stuff. And you just, that smell comes back to me. But yeah, giving them that opportunity. But so are you doing it inside your classroom? You're giving them that time, or is this another time?
I'm not part of the STEM Academy.
Oh,
so
I'm sorry.
We are open to using it, but it's just, we're so tied to our content that we have no time to go and, experience it ourselves and then create a lesson that goes with it. And usually if you go there and do something that is actually cool, it'll take you like 2-3 days. So that's taking time away from my content. So I can't do that. So yeah, so it's conflicting.
It is. And it's so the way that the STAR test is now for 5th grade, I used to do those things in my classroom at the end of the year. And I don't know about you guys, because our STAR testing was over in April. And especially for the kids that passed, like, you knew by like the end of April. And so most of my science activities were like, okay, all the things that I wanted to teach them and couldn't. And that would be, but now the STAR test is all at the end of the year. It's all the window and all of that. So,
yeah.
it really limits us, and that's unfortunate because that's not I don't know. I think as a teacher, we're conflicted between wanting to teach the objectives, which are research based and yada yada yada,
Yeah.
and the other things that we want to throw in there that do connect to that, but you have to do that core thing first. So,
Yeah, exactly. Mhm.
well, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
I go next, Crystal?
Yeah, I can go next. I chose the 2021 EDUCAUSE Horizon Report, the Teaching and Learning Edition. And the part that I read and focused on was the mental health issues. And it talks about having, like, when COVID came up, there started a lot to be more mental health issues with students because they're missing out on that social interaction and everything.
Mhm.
And that what I found interesting was that 80% of college students reported that the pandemic had negatively affected their mental health and that their mental health has worsened as the pandemic has gone on. And I know it's talking about college, but I can see that in the elementary setting, how this pandemic is affecting their mental health and their work at school and everything, just from going from last year to this year. And I just found it very interesting that it brought up the pandemic about it.
Um, I can see being in elementary, like even our kindergartners, because at first I'm like, well, the pandemic shouldn't have affected the kindergartners, right? But it did, because those kids were no longer allowed to be around their grandparents. They were no longer allowed to be around core people in their life, because we got to protect, our frail and our elderly from, COVID. And so their little worlds changed when all that happened. So they didn't even get to socialize like they used to. So even our kindergartners coming in were affected.
Mhm.
And thinking about it like whole picture, I mean, I could see that. I mean, I'm sure all of us as teachers were affected.
Yes,
So, yeah.
Yeah,
it
I
is.
really feel the pandemic hindered a lot of their development, like their mental development, their, social development, academic adult development. It was just not good all the way around because they were not exposed to so many things that they normally would, even if they weren't in school. And that's just limited them a lot.
These kids haven't had a normal school year since the 2018-2019 school year. And
Mhm.
so
Yep.
my third graders, they have yet to have a normal school year because when that pandemic it hit us in the March of 2020, everybody just went home and we didn't come back from spring break. So their
Mhm.
school, and so they got this extended break, and then we got thrown into whether you're remote or face to face last year, we got thrown into that world, and it was just struggling for the babies that had their parents chose to keep them home because they weren't learning in the atmosphere with the rest of their kids. And even if they were in person, there was the distance between them. You had the face shields, like you had to keep them more separated. And so they didn't
Mhm.
that you normally get to do and play in school. It was a lot
Yep.
more separated, which really
Yeah.
does affect. They need that playtime and that interaction for their mental health.
Mhm.
Adults do.
And then while you were talking, I was thinking about their parents being stressed. How many people lost their jobs? How many people were afraid to go to work? Or how many times, like, even I was that kid, I was weird. Like, anytime somebody was sick or anything like that, I thought I was going to get it. But I couldn't imagine a child who's aware enough to think about that, but not think it all the way through and be like, oh, my mom or dad works in a nursing facility. I hear nursing homes are getting, like they're hearing the news, even though you don't think they're paying attention, they are. And so that's another stressor with their parent either losing a job, work, having to work twice as much because they other people lost their, there was just so many things that their mental health could have been touched by.
There's a lot of dynamics. And when you brought up like that they're aware of these things, I taught fourth grade last year, so they're older. My classroom and my partner's classroom was shut down completely the day before the Christmas, 2 days before Christmas break. So
Mhm.
these kids, they get to have their party. They didn't even get to tell their friends goodbye for the holidays. And it really bothered them because I had a parent reach out to me talking about how sad her daughter was that she didn't get to see us at the holiday party or anything because our classrooms were shut down for being exposed by one person. So these babies, they really do
Wow.
get affected in ways that we don't think. Like we think, oh, it's just a holiday party. These kids were really, really upset because they were confused. One, why all of a sudden they're leaving? Like everybody's
Mhm.
just around like 11 a.m. And then they're talking about, we'll see you tomorrow at the party. But in reality, we knew we weren't going to see them, but we couldn't tell them, no, you're not going to be at school. So these kids, there's different factors that have really affected these babies in and outside of school.
Yeah. We sometimes forget, like we look at that, and we're like, oh, it's just a little party, for them. But to them, as a 10-year-old, that is their world. Like they are looking forward to it so much. And that's so unfortunate. I'm sorry.
Don't even, I thought about some of them may not even get involvement like that at home because
Mhm.
one thing they looked forward to and got to enjoy for
Yeah.
Christmas and robbed of them.
Mhm.
So my heart goes out to all these little kids and well, all the kids that are going through this because each of it hits them separately in different ways.
Yeah.
Well, I know a friend of mine, her and her daughter both tested positive. Her daughter had no symptoms, but when she tested positive and she was in second grade last year, she just started crying
Mhm.
because she didn't know what was going to happen to her. I don't think her mom realized that she'd been hearing other COVID things,
Yeah.
and I mean, it terrified her and she was perfectly fine. And not everybody's that way. And I get that, but it was this stress of her having it and the stress of giving it to her friends.
Yeah.
And she was
Yeah.
only in second grade.
My
Yeah.
son, because I caught it in July of 2020. And so it wasn't like that, but he didn't know a whole lot of all the outcomes of it. But then I ended up catching it again right when school started after we went back to school. And so
Mhm.
he was sent home and he was so confused why he couldn't be at school. And then I had a pretty bad case of it and he didn't know how the outcome was going to be. So his anxiety spiked up when I
Yeah.
had, and he's only in third grade. So I can only imagine how it really affected him with it being so close to home.
Yeah, I think they're young and they're babies. They don't understand the complexities of it, and they just know that if you get it, like people are dying because they're getting it, and they're afraid.
They
They don't comprehend like because you're young, you're gonna be okay, or mommy's not that old. They don't comprehend that. Yeah, so I can definitely understand why he was so fearful.
right.
They
And
don't
there's many,
understand statistics.
Yeah, they don't listen to this.
Let's
That's
talk
a
about
good thing.
ratios.
did you want to talk about cheers, Amanda?
Yes. So I read the 2020 EDUCAUSE Horizon report, Teaching and Learning Edition, and they had several subcategories. And one of the subcategories I wanted to talk about was because they were talking about technological trends, and they talked about artificial intelligence, and which they said it's already being used as part of educational services and a part of curriculum design. And at first I'm like, because I think artificial intelligence and I think of that movie where there's a robot and it's like a human, but I didn't really. And as I read on, it talks about more of artificial intelligence by using apps that assist students, like the apps that they take a test at the very beginning, and it tells them what level they're at, and then it starts teaching them, giving them little mini lessons. And I'm like, okay, we do use AI because we have iReady and iStation. Do you use that, Crystal?
I don't. My partner does. Well, we kind of
Okay.
got way I Excel, I think it is, but we have used programs. Personally,
Okay.
I'm just writing in science right now, so I don't get the fun.
Okay. So, and we rely a lot on iReady and iStation because one is math and one is reading. I haven't found a good science one yet. So we don't have one for science, but it's basically you're on it and you're always doing some type of mini lesson, and then you take a quiz and then you get rewarded for your attempts. I think some of them let you play a game if you get so far. Yeah. So we do use it, and I see part of me is like they're on the computer all the time. But at the same time, these are little moments that they can be on the computer when there is small groups happening. And as long as we're not relying on it as our whole teach opportunities, um, I mean, this is the way of doing things. And we also have science things that we do for simulations, which is also AI as well. What are y'all's thoughts on this stuff?
I like it and being able to use it. My kids, I misspoken. They use ST Math is what we transitioned to this year. They
Mhm.
stopped the iStation, and then last year I taught fourth grade. We didn't even do iReady, but these kids love it, and they want to even like on their free time in my class. They ask, can they get on it and work on it, and they see it more as fun, but they're learning,
Yeah.
and so the
Yes.
kids are really enjoying it, and them being on the technology is going to help them in the future with all the advances we're making, and everything's going to technology now.
Mhm.
Yeah. My school uses iReady in math, and my math teachers love iReady because it's self-paced and they're learning on their own, and they're being rewarded as, based on what they're doing, and it's really helping them improve because they're practicing. And the sheet, like a lot of the math teachers pull out like data proof that there's like, so this girl started the year with a test of like a 50, but she did iReady. She's been consistent with iReady, and now she's up to an 80, which is awesome. And yeah, so it's definitely proven that it works.
That's awesome. Like, I like it, and I see the applications for it. I just, as just old school me, I'm just like, I don't want to see you on the computer all day. Not that they are, because it's in
Yeah.
our school, it is very much you have iReady, iStation time, you have whole group time, you have, well, it's not in that order, but you have all of this time to do it. But I do like the reports that come out of it, like, because like you said, you can see their progress over time.
Yeah.
And I like that data as, I'm very much all about data, but, and maybe I'm just a little miffed because we can't find a really good science, type iReady,
Yes.
iStation.
Yeah.
It really is hard to find something like
is.
that.
It is. And then it has to be tied to Texas Teaks.
Mm-hmm. Not
And
common.
exactly. And then the thing is, we have different pacing guides. It's not like math where you have to know this before you know this, before you know this, or reading and writing where everything is just the same, but it's just different levels each year. Science is like, okay, we're learning about this year. Next year, you're going to learn about this. And, and the pacing guides all over. Because when I talk to other districts, when I go to PDs and stuff, I'm telling them we're learning body systems in December. And they're like, no, we are learning that in May. So I'm like, it has to be paced differently. So that's another thing.
And we even changed our pacing this year, at least in K through 6. We now do properties first because you can't describe anything unless you know what a property is.
Yeah.
So, and it made sense to build that way. But science could build in a number of ways. But like you said, it's kind of hard to make a system or an app to reflect science because it could just be so many things going on.
Yeah, exactly.
But I do know that ThinkUp was bought by iReady or iStation, one of those I's. And so I'm curious to see what they end up with because I think somebody or us, we need to go make one. We need to make an app that actually works for science.
It'd be nice because I feel like they're kind of missing out on the science aspect of that because they have it, the reading and the math, but science is still, it's everywhere. So they're kind of missing opportunity and for the data to come from that, showing where they're at. And like you said, our district, we started with properties, but last year I looked at the pacing guide, it was totally different. So it changes every year. And it's not as set in stone like when we're doing it.
And when I was in Sci-Fair, we started, I think, I could be completely wrong, but I think we started with organisms first. So,
all
I
over
mean,
the place.
yeah, it just depends on what district you're in. So, Tina, Crystal, we're gonna make us an app. Don't tell anybody else as this is going on YouTube.
Dr. Parker would be so proud of us if we made an app.
So we'll put this on our list of things to do.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you for discussing everything, and we'll see you on our next one.
All right,
Thank
thank you, ladies.
All right.